Hello, everyone, and welcome. Just to let you know, like you've heard, this session is being recorded. My name is Dr. Tracy Ortiz, and I will be the moderator for this ADEIL conference session. So thank you for joining us for Yes, You Can, Fostering Empowerment, Courage, and Self-Confidence Among Students in the Online Classroom. I'd like to welcome Dr. Sandra Rebeor and Dr. Yolanda Harper for this presentation. Thank you. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Let's get started. In online higher education, we all, I'm sure, have noticed certain trends or challenges among online students. And maybe you have been an online learner as well and have juggled college when you were going through your degrees and as well as other responsibilities. And we see those challenges, similar challenges among our students now. And these can include academics, juggling work and family alongside, or other stressors such as, or other challenges, such as stress, and that could be occupational stress, emotional stress. We also see financial stress. Maybe you're a caretaker to parents as well, or other family members. The students might be moving, experience chronic illness, as I mentioned, mental health challenges. There might be societal challenges, financial COVID, or other, pandemic or outbreaks, hurricanes, you name it, difficulty of coursework, etc. So there are many reasons, not just one, that students may struggle in the online classroom. And these can, of course, lead to unsuccessful grades or withdrawals or drops. And that could mean from the course or the university. So what is the link? One of the links to these challenges might be our emotions obviously play a role, and fear, the feeling of hopelessness, uncertainty about student skills or abilities, past failures, and I put that in quotation marks, or pain or anxiety about the future may all play a role. When a student has feelings such as of defeat or thinking that they can't accomplish something, master assignments or the course in general, or just juggle everything that they have on their plates right now, the result is often giving up. And instructors, of course, play a critical role in that process that students go through, because often they're the first point of contact for the students. Advisors and other support staff at the university play a critical role as well, but the instructor, especially if the instructor has made a meaningful connection with the student, may often be the very first point of contact when a student is struggling. We do have the capacity to create strong and meaningful connections with the students and that can even mean from the very beginning of the course and even right before the course starts, by reaching out to students, whether individually, sending a group message just so that the student has that point of contact and can feel a connection. And these can be very personalized as well. The instructor is often aware of unique circumstances and will look at some more factors that could be a warning sign or just an indicator that a student may be struggling. When we reflect back, I'm sure we all have certain experiences and have faced extenuating circumstances before in our own lives. And we can share those circumstances with our students, as well as how we handled and overcame them. And that can be very empowering to the student, just knowing that other people have been there, done that, and have overcome these challenges. And of course, we have probably all experienced similar scenarios with other students, and we can share, obviously no personalized information, but we can share a relating story with the student. So before we dive into the content some more, let's just look at some of the definitions of what they mean from our title. Empower. Empower means to give someone the authority or power to do something, or to make someone stronger and more confident, especially in controlling their life and claiming their rights. Courage means the ability to do something that frightens one, the strength in the face of pain or grief. And I believe that hope comes into play here greatly. If we can give students the hope and communicate again that there is a possibility that they can overcome these challenges, they will often just do it. And I've seen that many of times, and we'll share some success stories later. But I always like to share some quotes with some students, and I really like this one, that all things are difficult before they are easy. And last but not least, we'll look at the definition of self-confidence, and that is a feeling of trust in one's abilities, qualities, and judgment. And when students have that self-confidence, they can overcome many obstacles. Of course, our perceptions play an essential role in how we view challenges. And we may highlight these to our students, especially if they're not maybe psychology majors and familiar with some concepts, or other applied behavioral sciences majors. And it really boils down to locus of control. And again, perceptions in general just play a very critical role. In viewing challenges as opportunities to conquer obstacles and to evolve, results in the feelings of hope. And just changing one little word may make a really big difference. So if an incident happened to me versus an incident happened for me, we create that opportunity to improve. And that opportunity to view these challenges as an opportunity for growth and for just overall evolving as a student, evolving as a person, maybe as a colleague, as a parent, whatever your roles are that are really important to you and to your students, it's really critical to highlight them. And as I mentioned, internal versus external locus of control is very important. And I included the definition here because I think there are many highlights that we need to keep in mind. But essentially an internal locus of control is that the belief that we are responsible for, or at least can influence our lives and the outcomes. And we are in charge. An external locus of control is mainly when an individual sees themselves as powerless, as other people, events, or circumstances impacting their lives. And as you may have experienced yourself, depending on our locus of control is determined by what action we take. And of course, if an individual has more of an external locus of control, actions may be minimized. And the feeling, again, of feeling very hopeless and not in control of our lives, and hence giving up or dropping, are therefore increased. Our growth mindset is always something that I love to share with students in the very beginning of their journey at the university. And that is really our abilities are not absolute. So we don't know, because we don't know something doesn't mean we don't, it only means that we don't know it yet. Or if we're not able to do something, that only means we're not able to do it yet. But these skills and the knowledge can absolutely be honed. And I wanted to point out that from a survey on student statistics, that we have 3/4 of students in bachelor's programs and 2/3 of associate degree students that have considered taking a break from college due to emotional stress. So mental health is very critical and more cited as a reason to drop out for dropouts than the cost of college or the difficulty of coursework, or even other factors. And we really need to do a good job on understanding students' perceptions and including the barriers that they name, as well as offering support and resources. And just to speak of students of color, Native American, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian students, as well as multiracial students, were the most to report challenges. And these, the data is from a Gallup survey that was just conducted in April of this year. So we really need to pay attention to our certain populations of the students, but really all students, because every student, as we know, can struggle. But these were, you know, some data that I thought were really interesting to highlight. The cost of education is critical, but as we noted, not the most important factor that determines resilience and may lead to dropout. And part-time students are more likely to drop out than full-time students. So for anyone who has students at UAGC who mainly attend part-time, that is something to really keep in mind, because then we know that these other challenges or the other factors that may play a role that we mentioned in the previous slide may become more of an issue due to responsibilities. So this may lead to the natural question of what do empowered students look like? And as I mentioned, all students may struggle, and hence all students also have the potential to take ownership of their education learning by applying the skills and knowledge that they gain from previous experiences or even the current experience. So we really need to do a good job in the classroom and touch our students individually, because every student can be empowered. Here are some indicators, and these are just a few, of what empowered students may look like to you in the classroom. They're very proactive, ask questions, or share their opinions and experiences. They do ask for accommodations, breaks, or an extension of a deadline. They are knowledgeable about institutional rules or expectations in the classroom. And they adapt to changes in the classroom and in their personal and professional lives more readily, and as well as are able to collaborate well with others. So you might see that throughout the course in discussion forums and when interacting with students in other ways. And here's a quick note to self. These indicators also apply to empowered instructors. So be on the lookout for those and maybe do a self-reflection exercise on whether you have some of these indicators that show that you're an empowered instructor. And this is how we can identify students that may require additional outreach or interventions. And again, these are just a few, and they're not all inclusive. It could be that it's a brand new student to the university or to the program. If they have not posted their introduction by day 2 or 3, if they have any missing assignments, whether in week 1 or throughout the course, if they have a previously unsuccessful course, if there is late work, especially without accommodations, long breaks between classes, low grades on assignments, difficulty grasping content or not addressing the prompt, expressing challenges, and that can be directly or indirectly. So they may send you an email or a note. They may directly express it in the discussion forum or introduction, or they may not. It may just be apparent through, you may just be able to tell that they are overwhelmed reading between the lines. If they do not reply to you, respond to you, if you see that they are not logging in regularly, or if you send them an outreach request and they never respond to you, military affiliated students can often struggle due to their duties, or spouses deployment, dad might be gone. There are so many factors for military affiliated students. And the expression of challenges via content or work of communication. So I already said that with, and that can also be, as I mentioned earlier, it could be maybe in a reflection or assignment. So it's really important, and I just named some examples here that we can be on the lookout for. And now I will turn it over to Dr. Yolanda Harper.
Thank you, Sandra. So now where do we begin? Once we have began to identify some of these students, they may have challenges. Certainly there are dozens, probably hundreds, maybe even thousands of things we can do to assist them. I would say begin by making sure that our hearts and our minds are in the best spaces possible. So that's why I have first on the list, setting the intention to serve the best interests of our students with an inspirational, success-oriented mindset that considers their capabilities versus operating from a deficit-based mindset. From that centered position, then, we can model and speak the language of courage and self-confidence, like Sandra gave us so many great examples of. Whether your favorite model is grit, growth mindset, resilience, there are many models, but from that centered, growth-oriented, success-oriented, centered position, we can then model the language of courage again and self-confidence to empower our students. Thus, we're now communicating in empathic and encouraging, compassionate ways, being mindful, though, of our students' strengths and their capacity for success rather than their deficiencies. This helps us respond in helpful ways. And now we're ready to actually provide that accurate and specific feedback to our students on how to improve and the areas also in which they do well. So providing balanced feedback. And then offering them opportunities to demonstrate their learning. Once we've given them the feedback, how do we know that they've learned from the feedback? Will it be the next assignment? Will it be an opportunity to redo and resubmit? Is it not going to come until the last assignment of the last week? If so, then what opportunities will we have to see that they're progressing so that they're ready when they get there to that assignment? Now also think about what kind of recommendations that we make to students. Are we just saying, well, go to tutoring or go to the writing center? Those kind of comments assume that they know how to ask for the help they need and what to do with it, and what to do with the feedback once they get it. Some students may need coaching, just like when we go to any resource. There are some tutors, some coaches, some counselors that know how to really be effective with diverse students and ask the questions to figure out how to help the student, and others maybe are not so skilled in that area. So can we empower the students to go in and ask the questions and state what they need? Just last week, I had a student upload who clearly had gone to the writing center and gotten feedback on her paper. And she uploaded the version of the paper given back to her from the writing center, the paper review version, and had made no additional corrections. Giving my student the benefit of the doubt, I assumed it was an error and offered her the opportunity to upload the revised version of the paper in which they actually incorporated the feedback that was given. I haven't heard back yet, so I've got a note on my calendar, one more day, and then I'm going to follow up and see what's going on there. But on the other hand, I was grateful to see what kind of feedback was given to the student. because leading to the next bullet point, when I make a referral, especially when it's for something major, if they need a little tweaking on APA format, I may not ask for feedback on help, but certainly if it's something major, a major referral, they need a lot of work, I'm going to ask for feedback when I make a referral. What was useful? What type of feedback was given? Does the student know what to do with the feedback? When sometimes when it doesn't look like the feedback was incorporated, or I've given the recommendation, maybe next time use the writing center, and they come back to me an email and say, well, I use the writing center. Then I ask them, are you willing to share the feedback from the first draft? So I can get an understanding of what was said to them. Maybe get online with them. When you read this, how did you reflect that feedback in your paper? What do you think it meant? Did you know you could contact 24/7 assistants to get clarification if you're not quite sure what specific feedback means? Related to the previous one then, asking the questions that empower the students to be active participants in solving their challenges. So not just jumping to advising and assuming that they're not capable of acting to improve their performance or their situation. Striving for that collaborative approach that Sandra mentioned, rather than a paternalistic approach. Sometimes we have to get off the email and on the phone or in the video chat to deepen that communication. I personally prefer video chat so I can share my screen, point to the different instructions and resources and information, and ask questions. Next slide, please. Now, in the article referenced at the bottom of the screen here, Luis Macias reminds us that our attitudes as educators towards our students certainly impact their successes and failures. So this is why today we're emphasizing our mindset before we even get to speaking or writing one word to our students. Ask ourselves, am I serving the best interest of this student with an inspirational, success-oriented mindset that considers their capabilities? I'm going to say that again. Am I serving the best interest of this specific student with an inspirational, success-oriented mindset that considers their capabilities? How much strengths-based language is in my communication to my students? Which words am I using that model and speak the language of courage and self-confidence or grit or growth mindset or resilience without sounding preachy, without sounding dismissive of their own realities? It can be helpful for us to reflect on our own education. If we came up in a university structure that was weed out, has that mindset become our default? Or have we overcome that way of thinking to be most beneficial to the students that we guide today? Do we have mostly experience with compassionate teachers, or were they mostly focused on identifying deficits and adhering to non-negotiable deadlines? What kind of mindsets, again, are we bringing into our current practices? How are these mindsets evidenced through our verbal and nonverbal communications with their students? I remember overhearing a conversation years ago that someone saying, we need to get our minds right before we even open our mouths. And I would say, yes, we need to get our minds and hearts right before we open our mouths, before we write or type the first word. So let's practice reconceptualizing some words and to reverse their negative connotation and impact. Hopefully today in 2020, no one is actually saying these types of things out loud or in writing to students. However, sometimes these kind of words or thoughts are lurking in the backs of our minds. And sometimes the actions and comments of some suggest that they have these types of thinking in their mindsets. And the article that I have, again, listed at the bottom of the screen, shares some research in which they worked with educators to reverse the connotation. So pick one or two words that kind of jump off at the page for you. And if you would share in the chat how you might reframe them and turn them into strength-based opportunities. I'll give you some examples. And here on the screen where it says poor, the reference really wasn't, I don't think, to poverty per se, but things like poor writer, poor reader, poor thing. So those kinds of, that kind of use of the word, almost as a synonym for pathetic. So in the article, they gave an example of unprepared or underprepared became clean slate, would be an example. Lost became opportunity. Stubborn became persevering. I love to hear Dr. Newton Miller at our university, how he routinely says at potential instead of at risk. Lazy could be reconceptualized as conserving energy for these other responsibilities, or limited available energy at the present moment, being a temporary condition rather than a permanent character flaw. So again, please share whether they're reconceptualizations of these words or others that you've heard in your career in the chat. Because as we know, low expectations have the potential to change lives just as much as high expectations do. And so as we're sharing those, Sandra, if you could please go to the next slide. And we'll reflect on what you shared in just a bit. So in addition to our individualized interactions with our students, what are some things we can do in developing and managing our courses to empower our students to manifest the courage to thrive? Again, there are dozens, probably hundreds, maybe even thousands of things we can do. Here are just a few to get the conversation started. Please add your own examples in the chat. Do we really understand how non-college life events impact our specific students' learning and engagement? Being cognizant of that when we're developing and teaching our courses can be very helpful of making sure we're in the right frame of mind to be helpful. In an article by Gutierrez and Gutierrez 2019 that we'll share in our reference list and share in the chat when we open it up for questions and answers and conversation, these authors emphasize the importance of creating safe and empowering environments in our classrooms, regardless of what subjects we teach. They really are strong advocates of having a trauma-informed mindset, regardless of, again, the subject matter, to create those safe environments and positive relationships with our students. Traumatic experiences are a unique set of non-college life events. In many of the social science college courses, professors, they cover a wide variety of topics that can act as triggers for individuals who have had traumatic experiences. And increasingly in courses from the biological sciences, physical sciences, and even the formal sciences like mathematics and logic. In order to try to be interesting and relevant to students, they'll use problem-based scenarios so that students can relate the concepts to real-world environmental experiences to be more engaging for students. And some of these scenarios may trigger traumatic memories for some of our students. So where do we get evidence? Sandra talked about some of the emotional challenges some students have. Oftentimes it shows up in posted messages, in the discussion forum, or in assignments in ways that may not be appropriate for what the assignment is asking for. So recognizing moments like this allow us to create a caring environment, have some affirming offline conversations if we have that trauma-informed lens. So again, to recognize some of the signs, to remind them of support services available, whether it's counseling or whatever might, connecting with the helpline and advisor, whatever might be needed. A few more additional recommendations: scaffolding grit or growth mindset resilience throughout the curriculum. Sandra touched on this one already. Coupled with reflective assignments that can be useful. Assignments that encourage creativity and appropriate risk-taking. Collaborative assignments, I think Sandra mentioned already. Problem-solving activities. In an article by Wong and colleagues published earlier this year, there were some great examples of how they incorporated in student success modules self-regulated learning strategies to assist students in avoiding digital distractions, whether it's surfing the internet, YouTubing, texting, reading articles that are off topic, watching movies, sending emails, time in social media. As you might imagine, engaging in these digital distracted behaviors was associated with lower academic success and lower academic achievement. And giving into the digital distractions, interestingly, was associated with emotional factors such as anxiety and depression, motivational variables, a fear of missing out, emotional numbing, and procrastination, as well as just having too much on one's plate, leading to an over-reliance on multitasking. So for more information on these strategies, I will refer you to the article that's in our reference list, which again, I will share in the chat in just a minute. So lastly, for this particular slide, I'll just mention that promoting self-care and providing whether it's courses, co-curricular learning opportunities, and student services to teach students and give them opportunities to practice self-care and wellness skills. We know that mindfulness, yoga, self-compassion, anything, again, going back to grit, resilience, anything that develops resilience and wellness of the whole person. And just like the research on mindfulness has demonstrated for busy college students, yoga can also be an effective way to slow down and enhance focus. So the Viyate article that you'll get in the reference list shares some interesting research on a study that found that students engaged in a yoga class reported increased relaxation, which you would expect, being able to have a greater perspective on their lives, more focus, and feelings of empowerment. So in the same way that we offer wellness classes or videos to remote employees, we can make these types of resources available to students, even if not in a classroom setting. Next slide, please, Sandra. Okay, so now coming back to our topic that we stated in terms of choosing a success-oriented mindset, let's look at some things that we can do to promote success, and then we want everyone to share some success stories. As higher education professionals, we already know that our thoughts and our expectations can impact our students' lives. We know that. From us, students who have challenges can learn to truly believe in themselves and in their capabilities, not just to endure, but to succeed and to flourish. So we talked about focusing on their strengths. We can write and say things like, I admire your persistence. I admire your ability to fill in the blank. I am in awe of what you have accomplished so far, despite the challenges you faced. You are such an inspiration. I fully believe you can succeed in this once you're able to devote the time and energy into it. Or I don't know what your situation is and how much time or energy you have to devote to this, but I fully believe that you can do this and that you can succeed. Yes, you do have a ways to go to improve in this area, but I've seen original drafts that needed much more work than yours be revised and become very strong papers. So again, share some of your own things that you say to students in the chat, if you will. Related to this, I think it's important to normalize help seeking. This is definitely a strengths-based approach because it doesn't equate having problems with weakness, but rather equates having challenges with being a human being. So I will share that with students that, students on the dean's list and who graduate with honors use tutoring, they use the paper review, they use counseling services. I share that even in the most competitive universities, students utilize these type of services. And even counseling is used proactively, just like a sports psychologist is used by top athletes in order to clear the clutter so that the students can perform more effectively, can focus better, takes less time to read, to understand, and still be able to meet other responsibilities. And I'll give you a couple of quick examples, and then we want to hear from you. In the first example, I wrote in the course of communicating with a student, I fully believe that you can succeed in this once you're able to devote the time and energy to it, a comment I mentioned earlier. student who did succeed, later told me that she took a screenshot of my message, enlarged it, printed, and put copies on her bathroom mirror, on her refrigerator, beside her computer, and other places as a motivational reminder. And when she didn't get the grades she wanted the first time, she'd coach herself, make sure she'd had the time and energy to refocus. And then she wrote back later that she was amazed herself that now I even plan before I start an assignment to make sure I have time and energy to focus. She went on to say that she's able, even when there's an emergency, she's able to refocus and bounce back quicker after, and will go back to that message that she's got pasted in so many different places. She told me that I was the first person in her life of almost 60 years who ever told her they believed in her abilities to succeed. And I get choked up every time I think about that. And I told her that reading that brought tears to my eyes, and that I was honored to be one who wrote down what deep inside she's always known, that she's always had that deep knowledge, and that deep knowing has propelled her to start this journey in the first place. Again, always trying to be mindful of the importance of having a success-oriented mindset that will empower my students. So I strive to turn every compliment or expression of appreciation for any contribution that I've made to their success into an opportunity to affirm at least one strength in my students. The second example was a situation in which I normalized help seeking, with an example like I gave earlier. And this was a 40-something-year-old African-American male who told me it gave him the courage to use student services. And afterwards, he said he started telling every quote unquote brother that he knew that he had used counseling and writing help. And he really liked the sports psychology analogy. And he said, I'm going to be the LeBron James of writing before I graduate. So another thing that I do is knowing many of my students have children or work with students with children, I frequently share information that students can use, such as tips for helping children manage anxiety. It's a very popular one. I get a lot of feedback about. So that this type of information builds courage and success in ways that it doesn't appear like I'm preaching to them. It lets them gain information that's useful in a way that's sometimes easier to receive when it's for their children or for the children they work with or children they know. I frequently post scenarios that they can relate to and ask them to solve the problem and to offer advice. Inevitably, students will share with the entire class, you know, I was that person, and this is what helped me. And this can carry even more credibility than coming from when it comes from peers than it comes from me. So what about you? Please share your success stories. And I will get where I can read the chat now. And at this point, you're also welcome to unmic and share if that's easier than typing a scenario. I'm looking at the reframes now. Unique locations upon words and words, yes. Likes to consider their options before committing to a decision. I like that. Not quite understanding where to start. I like that. All right, fantastic. So any success stories, again, you're welcome to it on mic. Sandra, do you have any you want to share?
I'll just share one real quick. I had a student maybe a year ago who wrote me the sweetest note, just like you, Yolanda. I was just sitting there crying. And she was saying after the class that, those were her words, I'm just a girl from the Bronx, and I never thought that I could earn a degree. And it's instructors like you who have not given up on me, worked with me, offered feedback, encouragement, and made me believe in myself. And I, couldn't believe it. I mean, it's just how, it was just so moving. And a lot of students say after difficult circumstance, or even while they're going through it, I could not do this without you, or other instructors. I hear that from other faculty that we work with, how much those encouraging messages mean. My favorite quote is by Albert Einstein: "In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity." And I think that applies to all challenges that we personally face, and our students face. Just a quote entered in an email, letting them know, I believe in you. I'm here to support you. Yes, you can turn this in, a couple of days late. Happy to work with you. I know this is difficult. Hang in there. You'll come out on the other side. Just a few of those words or sentences can really mean the world to a student, because in that moment when they type the email or reach out to you or consider dropping, that might be the one thing that keeps them coming back into your class, just typing an email, checking it, and going, yes, okay, she believes in me, they believe in me, I can do this. And they will plow through. And there are many, many amazing stories that we could share from our 10 plus years of experience. And we're here to tell you that it's worthwhile, and that students truly appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you, Sandra. Deb has shared. Thank you so much. This is great. Deb, thank you for sharing that. The success stories also come at graduation. Yes. We're face to face with students who are so very proud of their accomplishments and the support they receive during their educational journeys. Typically, they have a support group, whether it's family, friends, etc., with them, and a huge smile on their faces. Absolutely. It's one of the high points of the work that we do here, is celebrating with them at commencement when they make it to that point. Thank you for sharing that. Well, the mic is open, the chat is open. This time we wanted to hear from you. Any questions, comments? How easy is it for you, or challenging to get into the mindset, success-oriented, empowering mindset? If we're here, probably to a large extent, we're speaking with people who do this already as a default. But, life happens to us as well sometimes. And so sometimes we have to step back and breathe and center before we respond to that particular email, and realize that even in the emails and messages that come from our students, that they're clearly frustrated. Again, if we step back and center ourselves, we'll be able to respond in a way that is success oriented.
Okay. Absolutely. Share it. Thank you so much for sharing that, Yolanda. Well, if we have nobody speaking, I'm just going to scroll through the references. Yolanda had some great articles that we included. And of course, if you have any questions at all or would like to continue the discussion, we are here. These are our email addresses, so please contact us anytime, or if you wish to collaborate. We thank you for your time in attending this session, and we hope that the content will be useful to you as you reach out and touch many students' lives and empower them along the way. Thank you so much.
And Sandra, for some reason, it's not allowing me to copy and paste into the chat. So if you want to leave that reference slide up in case anybody wants to take a screenshot of it.
Absolutely. Was it this one, Yolanda? I had to split them up.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Probably give a little time on both pages.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not allowing me to paste into the chat. So.
And if you would like them, you can also email us and we'll send them to you.
Okay, I just want to say thank you very much to Dr. Rebeor and Dr. Harper for your presentation. Very encouraging words on how to foster student learning and ourselves, actually. Thank you all for attending. I'm going to go ahead and put the evaluation in the chat. If you all don't mind taking time out to fill out that evaluation form for this great presentation, and enjoy the rest of the ADEIL conference. We have another session and then closing remarks coming up.
Thanks everyone for attending and participating.
Thank you. And thanks, Tracy and Andre, for moderating.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.